Hello tankers and tankettes, welcome to a game of mine. It's a mouse game and I've paused it for some reason, so I should probably unpause it. This is one from the stream and I'm playing with Circon. He's there in the T62A. And while we're in this countdown bit of the battle, what I normally do is just glance at the enemy team list, glance at our team, and maybe try and draw some conclusions about what the enemy team will do and where it's best to position myself. Now there's a couple of things I noticed right away. The enemy team has got a reasonable number of mediums. They've got actually two top tier mediums. We've got some mediums as well, but the only one I can count on is obviously Circon. The other thing is that there is no artillery. There are no high-tier tank destroyers, and we're on the south spawn, and I mentioned the mediums particularly because what the mediums like to do is they like to rush along this path here and get to this area here and basically, cause havoc for whatever team is starting on this particular flank. So as we can see, there are some mediums that are going there to counter that threat, and I'm actually going to go there as well because I know there's a rock I can make use of. And potentially we can just totally stop this medium push dead in its tracks. And that could end up being very important for the game because if a group of enemy mediums get to the position where we're going, if they manage to fight round to that corner, that can be very, very difficult to defend against, and you end up pushed right back onto this side of the map trying to spot and defend, and you can end up with just a massive disadvantage. Often it's very hard to come back from that and those games end up being lost. But as it is, as I'm going to be here as well, you can already see I'm bouncing all of the shots, hopefully that will be enough of a deterrent that I will act as a shield wall basically for these mediums to make use of. I'll be absorbing the damage, they'll actually be doing the damage, and we will stop the enemy team dead in their tracks, and also it will stop them not just from advancing, but it will, if they're not playing that smart or if they're playing cautiously, it will stop them retreating elsewhere because they'll be worried that we'll make a counter push, that we'll do what they were trying to do. First, however, I've got to take care of this E50. Obviously, he's quite a threat right now, and I'm even bouncing some gold ammo here, some premium ammo. So there we go. Take his tracks off. There's a slightly above average roll there. It's quite nice. Most of the damage I'm going to do in this game is going to be against that poor E50, and he basically, even with premium ammo, I think he only penned me once. So yeah, he's about to be RIP. You can see there the mediums behind me laying down some damage on these guys, and they're actually trying to fire at me rather than the mediums. You can see the 125 has switched to heat, and I think he basically spends the rest of the battle firing heat. I'm going to guess he doesn't really walk away from this game with a profit particularly, just from the amount of premium shells he was actually firing. So I'm going to switch to premium shells myself, just because, I'm concerned he might be running out of gold shells. I want to be generous. I want to give some back to him because I'm a little worried for the guy, So I'm being cautious here. The 125 is just waiting for me to poke out, and my positioning is okay. It's not super fantastic. I'm worried slightly if I go more to the right that I could get some crossfire from further along here, maybe, but it depends. Now, on the rest of the map, we are actually doing a lot better. I mean, this is just a total stalemate on this flank. On the other side, because we've got the 110 E5 and the 140 tied down, who are both in a platoon. In fact, we can just check the platoon list. I don't think there were any other... No, their only other platoon was the two mediums, tier 8 mediums, who are both there as well, by the way. So both their platoons are tied up on this flank, and that is the majority of their top tier tanks tied up on this flank. The E100, the 110E5 and the Object 140. Only the Batchat has gone to the hill. There's also an E75 and a WZ there, of course, but our IS7 has gone up there. Circon is obviously along on that flank, slightly lower down, and there's the IS8, the T30, a bunch of the tier 9s. So they're actually having quite an easy time of it, purely because this is one of those times when tying up even just one or two enemy players, if they'd been elsewhere on the map or if they'd been able to push along here, this could have gone very, very differently. Now, I've nearly run out of hit points at this stage, mostly because of that 110E5 firing all the premium shells. I can't really blame him for switching to premium for me, but you can even hear he's firing premium against the Centurion there. And it's really not necessary against a Centurion, not with that gun. In fact, it's actually counterproductive, because if you hit the gun mantle at the Centurion, it's going to do absolutely diddly squat. I have, at the moment, done all the damage I'm going to do in this battle, so it's not like this was a high damage game, but still, 2.2k is not bad for a mouse. It's not quite my own hit points worth, but it's more the novelty value of this strategy. It's just having brought their advance to a dead halt that has probably made quite a difference. Zircon is now basically rushing rounds. He wants to be at the front, because that way he gets to do, you know, the most damage. Otherwise, it's just a T-34 left on the hill. He's not going to be lasting very long. There's an AC-48 behind Zircon, and that's one of the cases in the AC-48 where actually the turn of speed is quite nice. You can hunt down remaining enemy tanks and try and do a bit more damage. So I'm trying to do a bit more damage myself, but instead I managed to whack one into that rock. So the 140 is obviously not... I don't know, I don't quite know how he... That shot looks like it should have come from there, but actually he's kind of like there. So I don't quite know where he caught my... You know, he obviously got the front of my turret there. I think I was just unlucky, because it was as I was turning the turret back in. But I'm literally down to my last 100 hit points now. But on the other hand, we've only lost 2 tanks in this entire team, so it may have been that this would have been a win anyway, but I suspect that I have potentially helped hasten this victory. Now I'm going to switch back to regular. There's no point wasting shells now, premium shells. It's just throwing credits away. Zircon's cleaning up a last bit of damage. See there, the 110E5 still looking my way. He wants me. I think he must be a fan, or maybe he's a fan of Caption Guy. Maybe Caption Guy bribed him to try and kill me. I don't know. But whatever, he's determinedly looking in my direction, even though there are tanks closing in on his rear, and he knows there are tanks closing in on his rear. He wants me. He just wants me, and he takes a pot shot at the Centurion 7-1. He finally backs off because he's about to get an AC-48 in the butt. And I'm probably not going to get to shoot anything here, am I? Well, I kind of already said I'm not going to get to shoot anything else. So it's really just down to that last guy now. Zircon's almost out of health himself, but this 125 is severely outnumbered, and there we go. We only lost 2 tanks in the entire game. That's not terrible. I also bounced a fair number of shells there, some of them premium shells, but I ate a good deal more of premium shells. So if we look at the actual score, 3rd class mastery, not very impressive in terms of XP earned. It was, I think, let's see, 778 base XP. Not great, not awful. I did get a steel wall, unsurprisingly. The actual potential damage received was 5,222. No, just 220. I wanted to add an extra 2 there, just because reasons. And of course, there's also the nearly 3,000 hit points that they took off me on top of that. So I think I did all right there. I actually got some spotting damage, and it's just, you know, I actually ended up losing credits just because I had the repair cost and I wasted some prem shells. And ordinarily, if I live through a mouse battle, unless I spam a lot of prem shells, I generally make a profit. But you know, with premium, obviously, it's a bit harder without. But even though the actual bounced amount of damage doesn't seem that impressive for a mouse, it was just the sheer novelty of this strategy. It was just looking at the exact set of circumstances that the matchmaker had handed us. The fact that there were no artillery and no high-tier tank destroyers that could, you know, shave off a huge amount of health in one hit. And it just ended up being... It was kind of hilarious, actually. Just sitting there, hiding behind that rock, and side-scraping out and bouncing all those shells, and watching them just get frustrated and switch to the premium ammo. Personally, if I was the 110E5, if I was the 140, I would have given up. I would have gone elsewhere. Obviously, you know, a couple of tanks would have been required to stop us from just pushing up that flank then with the mediums that we had. But they tied themselves down in a really bad spot. And I think they were actually some of the better players on their team as well, the Object 140 and the 110E5. So by tying those guys up, by tying up the E100, by tying up those other tanks that were there, it probably did swing the match quite a lot in our favour. The enemy team weren't doing that much damage-wise. As you can see, Zircon actually did fairly well for himself. He did over 5,000 damage. He only got 2 kills, though, which is possibly why he's actually only 2nd on the team list. The 1st place guy only got 2,000 damage, but 4 kills. So, you know, kills do count for XP, but I'm pretty sure Circon would have walked away with probably more credits, because credits are what get you the damage is what gets you credits at the end of the day. So there you go. It was, like I said, a total novelty, but it just goes to show you that the first 30 seconds of the match, even before you actually, before it actually starts, they can be really quite important. Novelty value aside, there is a lot of value in looking at the team list, seeing what the enemy team has, and having a guess at where they are likely to go. That can tell you quite a lot about how the match is going to work out. And if you guess correctly, as I did in that case, it can actually really change the course of a match totally. So if you enjoyed this replay, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.